So special counsel Robert Mueller indicted 13 Russians for interfering in U.S. election. President Trump says the indictment by Mueller proves no collusion. And troubles are mounting in the FBI. Florida Governor Rick Scott on Monday called on the FBI to release all details on why it didn't adequately follow up on a tip received in January regarding alleged Florida high school shooter Nicholas Cruz. And Asian Americans are the talk in Pyeongchang Olympics. Half of the Team USA's figure skaters are Asian Americans. Hi, I'm Michael Wan, your host for Michael Wan's Op-Ed Live, and this is Ben Pak, former deputy for California Senate Pro Tem Kevin DeLeon, and a strong candidate for the California Board of Equalization seat. So how's your campaign going, Ben, so far?
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
Campaign is going absolutely great. This period is when we're collecting a lot of donations, and although I jumped in pretty late in terms of the other candidates, I have about 50% of the amount that they collected for the past 3 years. I did it in about 3 months.
Okay.
So I have to say I'm standing pretty solid. At the same time, there's a lot of excitement. The Democratic Convention is this weekend in San Diego. I am going there to do my rounds and then present my case as the strongest candidate, like you said, because I'm the only one who actually has no issues and actually has business experience. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, I heard that. I also heard that our format has been helping you get some traction too.
Well, this is great in every sense. It makes me inform myself in a lot of the issues, as well as I had never done this type of sort of being, a commentator. So of course, it does help. So I appreciate it.
Okay. So before we start our show, I would like to remind our viewers that our show is not about what's right or wrong, but it's about what's right.
It's not about left and right.
Left and right. It's about what's right or wrong. Well, Ben, let's get to our first topic. Special counsel Robert Mueller indicted 13 Russians and 3 Russian companies for interfering in U.S. election. The new charges allege that the Russians created false U.S. personas and stole the identities of real U.S. people in order to interfere with the 2016 presidential election. The efforts, which began in 2014, were connected to the so-called Internet Research Agency, a shadowy Russian operation based in St. Petersburg that leveraged Facebook and other social media platforms to spread divisive messages leading up to the 2016 election. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein noted that there is no allegation in the indictment that Americans had any knowledge of the operation. The defendants are being charged with conspiracy to defraud the United States. 3 defendants also face additional charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and bank fraud, and 5 charges of aggravated identity theft. And for our viewers' consideration, Rosenstein is the top justice official overseeing Robert Mueller because Attorney General Jeff Sessions has recused himself from the Russia investigation. Ben, your thoughts on this?
Is this what's to be expected in the future? Is this what politics looks from this point on? 126 million people have to have access or looked into the fake posting done by the IRA. And people actually very impressionable. And I think this whole thing started in Russia sort of to just be disruptive. I don't think they had a side to pick in terms of the presidential election, but they did it just to kind of prove that they can actually meddle into this election. Collusion, yes or no, is yet to be seen. But at this point, I don't think that's the biggest issue. The issue is that at any time, they can create trolls, accounts, and even they were able to create demonstrations, by a lot of people and with fake names and locations. And people actually showed up. And then they've actually even done some posting by Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
And so they can pretty much do everything. So I think the biggest issue is how do we trust the sort of social media in their accuracy? And I think it's something that is very concerning. It may not affect local elections, but we're talking about the presidency of the United States.
Yes.
It also concerns me that the Trump administration is kind of dismissing it, and the President Trump is taking a very selfish approach that there is no collusion, and then he tweets as usual, but he's not really addressing the bigger issue that the Russians meddle, and they're really not doing anything about what Congress imposed sanctions, but they're not actually enforcing it.
So I think Russia's goal was to disrupt the democratic process in the United States. And we have to note that most of the money was spent after the election, if you go into detail of the documents of the of Robert Mueller's charge. So I would say this. I would say this. If Hillary Clinton would have won back in November of 2016, this would have been a non-issue. There would not have been a special counsel appointed. This whole thing wouldn't have been exposed. But I think it was a good thing. We have to know Russia is not a friendly country for the United States. So we have to know what an adversary is trying to do in this country. They didn't try to rig the system per se, but I think they wanted to disrupt the system. For instance, they had a rally, a pro-Trump and anti-Trump rally, both in New York City, as you just mentioned a little bit. And the problem is, it was CNN and MSNBC that also prompted it up. That's what's revealed, because they said because they wanted to portray how many people are so against Donald Trump. But they didn't know. I mean, for their defense, they didn't know that the Russians were behind this. And even the famed director Michael Moore, he also attended the anti-Trump protest that was organized by the Russians. This is a joke on us, on the United States election process, but the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, did mention that it didn't change the results of the election. He mentioned that, and according to that basis, Trump is saying there was no collusion.
You know, like I said, the investigation is ongoing. I think so far what has come out is helping President Trump make his case. To my own discontent. I really, wish that more would come out, but it's not.
But that's not good either, right? Okay.
At the same time, once again, let's look at the big picture. Russia, which has been sort of the nemesis for the United States for the longest time, has actually been able to infiltrate the American people and our social media to be able to meddle. And I mean, shoulda, coulda, woulda, we don't know if the outcome was somewhat, they manipulated or not, and they're still investigating. But if you have such people as the director Michael Moore showing up to somewhere where he is one of those people who informs himself very well, and I think he would fact check something before he were to go and then actually have his camera and then do his documentaries. And I would have to say then, how we, the average individual, immune from knowing what is the real thing and what is not. Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook, they're sort of kind of going, well, free speech, we really don't have much to control because this is the platform. That in itself is dangerous, because once they can do it once, if money is the only thing that you need to be able to access those mediums, then they're going to put more money, and then they're going to do it again. And now they actually know how to manipulate it and what the outcome is going to be. So that's a very scary thought.
Yeah. And Donald Trump twittered, of course. He's the president of Twitter, I would say. So this is what he twittered. I mean, this is a quote, exact quote that Barack Obama, former president of the United States, said 1 month prior to the presidential election. So Obama said this: "There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections. There is no evidence that that has happened in the past or that it will happen this time. And so I'd invite Mr. Trump to stop whining and make his case to get votes." So this is Obama saying that. So Obama, according to this document, United States was warned back in 2014, before even Donald Trump decided to run for presidency. So this has been going on for a while. So I would put all the blame on Barack Obama on this. Why didn't Obama do something about it then? He didn't mention that much. And if you remember back in the 2011 presidential campaign, when Mitt Romney debated against Barack Obama, you know what Romney said? Romney said the biggest adversary, the biggest opponent of the United States is still Russia. That's what Romney said. Romney said Russia is the most dangerous country still out there. And Obama dismissed him. Obama said, you're living in the 80s. We're not living in the Cold War era anymore. He said it's Al-Qaeda. You're not mentioning Al-Qaeda. He said Al-Qaeda and all those terrorist groups, which I think probably Obama was right too, but he dismissed Russia's influence or danger on the United States. But now that since President Trump won the presidency against all odds, it's like they have a Trump derangement syndrome. I even see the special counsel as an extension of a Trump derangement syndrome from the media and from the Democratic Party and also the establishment from the Republican Party.
Well, in 2011, things were different. You know, Russia was not a big threat. Back then, truly ISIS and the terrorists were a bigger threat. So, you know, we have to kind of take things into context. Whether the Russian actually manipulated the actual voting in the election, you know, that's a dangerous territory to go. But the fact that they actually meddle in the opinions and the minds of the American people, I think that's where the real danger is. Because the system in itself, the voting booths, the machine itself cannot be rigged.
Cannot be rigged.
Or
It
it was
be hacked.
not.
Exactly.
And nothing has come out where they actually hacked the machines itself or the counting system of it. Nobody has mentioned anything about that. What we have here is two issues. One, that the Russians actually manipulated social media, and whether Trump cooperated and actually colluded with the Russians beforehand to kind of bring this into the fold of the election. So those are the two things.
Exactly.
Even the collusion, because you can take either side of it, whether Hillary had knowledge or whether Trump had knowledge. Once again, the investigation is going to come out. But I think it's a fact and it's a given that the Russians spent a lot of money and they had a lot of agents working in the United States. 13 people have actually been indicted. But those indictments means nothing.
Exactly. I was about to say that.
Because they're in Russia,
They're in Russia.
And probably they're enjoying a very good lifestyle, and then they're heroes in their country. And I've even heard that a 30-year-old who was absolutely a beginner when he was first hired by the IRA, now he's sort of like not only rich, but he holds a very good position. The mastermind of this whole scheme from the Russians is called, what is he called? The chef or the...
I forgot.
I forgot. But he actually has a contract by the Russian government that supplies 90% of all the food for the Russian military. So he's not only wealthy, but he's super connected within the people who sort of controls Russia's politics. So they have a limited amount of money. And I am, like, once again, very, very worried about what's going to happen on the next election. Now they've kind of tasted success by being able to do this.
Exactly, I understand. And there has been some reports from the mainstream media and everywhere that Russia is already trying to meddle in the midterm, the 2018 midterm election. So definitely I think they would try to do it back in 2022. But I think one of the reasons why Russia is keep on doing this thing is because it worked. Look at, so I know that even Washington Post covered it. I'm talking about Uranium One scandal, okay? When Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State of the United States, she and 8 other agencies, they approved giving up America's, essentially, the content is giving up 20% of American uranium to Russia. And uranium is what's used to make nuclear weapons, right? They did this. And from Russia's perspective, why wouldn't they try to, rig? I mean, if they feel like America is this stupid enough to give up 20% of American uranium, which, by the way, America doesn't have a lot of uranium. We actually import uranium. So it's insanity for a country who needs import of uranium to export uranium. It's not even export. We just gave it to Russia, which is, I think, would be one of the biggest scandals coming up in 2018. But in Russia's perspective, if I'm Vladimir Putin and that worked, I wanted to, which FBI also admitted that Russia tried to gain some uranium in U.S. soil. So if that plan worked, I would try, hey, let's do some, playing with the election process. And that's what exactly happened, and I think they will do it this time around in 2018 and also coming 2020.
I think, to summarize or to kind of, I think America had dismissed, Russia as being a threat for many years because we've always felt sort of there's a decline, they're no longer
We always felt that way,
communist,
you're right.
and then they were divided by many other countries. And then I think this is kind of putting Russia back in the map. But not only that, now you have China, who has an army of hackers, and then North Korea is very well known for meddling. I mean, during the Olympic opening ceremony with the whole hacking of the drones, they never found out where it came from, but it has to be one of the rogue countries that did it. So
and Sony too, right?
Yes, yes. That was what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say this. It's not like America doesn't meddle in other countries' election. I saw the list, even Chile, the country where you lived. America,
Chile, Panama, all those South America, Korea.
And they were also trying, Obama administration tried to rig Israel's election and try Benjamin Netanyahu not to get elected. That's been proven too. So I think it's not like so it's not like only Russia does it. It's the U.S. doing it. Even the former CIA director, he came out on an interview and somebody asked him, does the United States still intrude in other countries' election? And you know what his answer was? Well, lama. That's exactly. He was saying that. So we know that this thing is happening. And it's not a big news that Russia tried to meddle in an election. They did it even back in 2008 when Obama and John McCain was squaring off each other. So this is not a new thing.
But the internet was not available the way it is nowadays.
Yes, true. That is true too. But we have to also note that Facebook, one of the executives of Facebook, he mentioned that the mainstream media has been covering this like, oh, this is proof that Trump has, and Russia has some kind of ties. But he said, I forgot his name. I think his last name is Goldman. Mr. Goldman said that most of the money was spent after the election, and they did both this, pro-Trump and anti-Trump rallies. And we have to know what their goal is. Russia's goal was to disrupt America's democracy.
Yes.
And I think it worked. It worked to such a degree. Look how divided we are, right?
Yes.
I mean, if I'm Russia, if I'm Vladimir Putin, I would tell myself, oh, this worked like a charm, and I'm going to do it again.
Well, that's what worries me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so on to our next topic. The FBI said it had failed to act on a tip warning that the man now accused of killing 17 people at a Florida high school. Florida Governor Rick Scott is really angry about this. And he said that FBI Director Christopher Wray should be fired over this blunder. Your take on this, Ben?
No doubt there was a big failure.
It was a big failure,
And
institutional failure,
I mean, in hindsight, it's always 2020.
Yes.
FBI gets about 750,000 calls a year.
How is that?
That's how many they get. But nonetheless, if you keep on getting a call from the same for the same person, you have to go and check.
Yes.
So they admitted that it was never forwarded to the field office in Miami. Yes. But furthermore, the Broward County sheriffs had gotten more than 20 calls about the same individual as well, and they didn't follow up. And I mean, I don't care what excuse you have, they failed to go and check it out. If you get 20 calls, and then some of them, I haven't heard I haven't read the report, or I haven't heard the calls that were left in order for people reporting the behavior of Nicholas Cruz. I think somebody should have still had gone and then looked, or somebody even should have gone to the school and then spoken to somebody. It's like, do you have somebody this way? So there was a major failure. In light of what happened, I think things are going to be done very differently, and I think now they're going to pay special attention if people are calling. And there's been an upsurge of calls, and I'm pretty sure you've heard those stories that came out where grandma turned in his grandson, and then they thwarted a possible attack. But I've been hearing more and more of those things. The danger in that, once again, is that once there's too many sort of cry wolf, then people are going to start saying, okay, this is another false alarm. Yeah. And it could happen again.
So the thing is, we say this: if we see something, report it, right?
Right.
So that's what they exactly did. That's what the regular people did.
Yes.
Then the FBI, what are they supposed to do? They have to do something, and I think they did not do something. So this is an institutional failure, a complete breakdown, in my opinion. And I think FBI has been disgraced in a lot of areas. I put not not just in this situation, even back in 9/11, it's considered a failure, right? Regardless, I mean, even though we didn't know what was coming,
Could this be a ploy by the Russians to discredit
we don't
FBI?
know. We wouldn't say we wouldn't go that far. But I would say FBI didn't follow the protocols. They admitted it, right? This is what Christopher Wray admitted. I mean, he's a newcomer. He's been here like half year now.
Yes.
So it's FBI's failure. They're doing an internal investigation. That's what Jeff Sessions, Attorney General, said. So I think that, which they should. And it's, President Trump said this about this incident. I mean, this kind of thing is not acceptable because they've been informed specifically, and he mentioned it on, it was on a YouTube that he said he wants to become a professional school shooter.
Yes.
I think that already raises red flags, and there had to be some kind of follow-up to that. But there was no follow-up regarding that.
I mean, in hindsight, 2020,
Hindsight
now
is
all
2020,
this is coming out. But I mean, do you know how many people make stupid comments?
Of course they do.
There was
yes.
one viral video of this school teacher, pointing a toy gun at an image of Donald Trump, and she's shooting this toy gun, saying "die, die, die,"
Yeah.
and then that went viral. So, do we go and then arrest this teacher that actually made threats to the president?
Well, I think
in an image.
Well, I think the president is a famous figure, and there has been so many threats against him. Probably, if I'm the FBI, probably we would have to take a look at that one too. But I would say if you become like specific, like what Nicholas Cruz did, I think there should have been a follow-up. But President Trump said this about in his Twitter account. I was trying to find it. He was criticizing that the FBI was focusing too much on the Russian probe. There has been some talks. They were jokingly, some conservatives has been joking last week in a sarcastic way. Probably if they didn't spend as much time on Russia, they would have followed up on that. But it shows that there's something wrong about the FBI right now.
Totally disagree with that one, and I cannot believe that Trump,
that one he is getting criticized for that.
Actually finds a way to make it about himself. The fact that he kind of comes out and then makes that kind of remark against an institution such as the FBI, I think is totally not what he's supposed to be doing. And then you're pretty much putting the entire agency of the FBI into
the rank and file. We always respect
yes.
them. I'm not talking about the rank and file, but this kind of thing is from the management. I'm not talking about the FBI agents who are working on the 7th floor of the FBI building, the higher echelons. Those people, I think FBI is corrupt. I think at this point, starting from James Comey, the former director, and also the deputy director, Andrew McCabe, he resigned. There's a reason for that. And you dismiss Memogate. This is directly related to Memogate. If Memogate wouldn't have come out, Andrew McCabe would have still have been there. And there's going to be a phase 2 of the Memogate that's coming out. I think it's all related. Of course, President Trump, he's wrong about connecting this to make it to his issue. But he's trying to make a point that there's something really seriously wrong about FBI, and they have to do some kind of overhaul to not let this kind of blunder happen again.
Remember, all government agency, whether it's the CIA or FBI, the ultimate goal is to protect the country and its citizens.
Yes.
And the fact that he just puts it all, or even the fact that you're saying that they're corrupt,
I wouldn't say like the rank and file. I wouldn't say the rank and file, but I'm talking about the higher management.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think they're all political when it comes to the 7th floor.
Yeah.
And whether it is to the left or to the right. And that's why we have checks and balances. And then although you kind of say they quit or they're dismissed for this reason or that reason, that's how checks and balances work. Because we have those, they were able to kind of, for them, they had to step down because somebody made it possible for this to kind of come
I would say this. I think FBI became such a political institution, in my opinion, because look at the Robert Mueller special team. They're all Democrats. They all gave contributions to Democrats. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you were the opposite party, you wouldn't like that.
Well, that argument can be said about so many
I know,
things.
but in this case, they were all. Especially there's a Korean American. There's a Korean American.
Bessie DeVos.
Yeah, Bessie DeVos.
That was confirmed.
Yeah.
She pretty much has donated to every
of course,
single Republican.
I understand. So that's why they got elected. But that's how the politics works. But what I'm talking about, if you're an FBI or Attorney General office, they should be above that. They shouldn't always follow party lines. But in this case, I mean, look at Robert Mueller's pit bull, the number 2 guy in that special counsel team. His name is Andrew Wasserman. He's a very shady character. He did a lot of shady things during some of the trials that he did back in the 90s and the 2000s. Came out on reports. So what I'm saying is, when people read these things, I mean, why is FBI in the front? I mean, does the FBI have to be on the news all the time? It's been on the news for last year and also this year. Even James Comey has been criticized from the left, right, during the 2016 presidential election, because he came out 10 days before the election and he said he's going to reopen the Hillary Clinton email scandal. You know about that. Yeah, so it's not just from the right that's criticizing the FBI. It has gone from both. FBI has been getting some incoming from both parties. So what I'm saying is, I think FBI is on the news too much. I think FBI shouldn't. I think if they did their jobs, probably they shouldn't. Probably I'm being a little bit too harsh on this, but it makes me a little bit angry because especially this happened in a school.
There is no other way than the FBI being in front and center because they're the premier law enforcement agency in the country. Now, we are dealing with issues that they were the leading investigating agency, therefore they're in front and center. Yeah. You know, the tragedy happened. Hopefully it will not happen and things will be done to kind of avoid this type of occurrences. But I think there's a big lesson to be learned. And I think FBI is going to be doing something better moving forward in order for them to avoid this kind of situation. And I think this has put law enforcement agency sort of on notice everywhere, not just the FBI, but local police, county and police, because now it happened. You know, next time somebody calls, there will be a follow-up, so this doesn't repeat.
What do you think about some people arguing that the teachers should be able to bear arms, or at least have some securities in school more enforce it? So, because this, I mean, it's not like, hypothetically, we can't go back to where we don't have guns at all, like in Japan or Korea.
Yes.
So the gun is here to stay. If we put that, if we put that into consideration, do you think at this point it's better for the teachers to bear arms or enforce some more security so that the students feel safer?
I don't know about teachers, but I think well-trained individuals whose sole job is to protect the school. I think that's something that we can look into. I know there's cost associated with it, but at the same time, you know, the government has a lot of money. Instead of putting money on other things, maybe the security of the children in school should be a priority. So I don't think that's a bad idea. Putting guns into teachers without the training or
that'll be dangerous.
You know, 5 hours, 10 hours. But I think trained individuals have to be the ones who have security in hand at school.
So you think more security should be in place?
Because remember, they said 2 securities at the shooting that happened in Florida, but there were actually part-time or teachers or coaches that sort of acted as security, but they really did not have security training, they did not have firearms, they did not really have anything type of formal training. So I think, like I had mentioned to you before, LA or other school districts have police, but they only come when there are some issues. And then there are some schools that will have their own security team in place, but most of them are not armed and they do not really have the training to take down that kind of threat. So I think more training is necessary.
So there's a Washington Post ABC poll that came out and says most say Trump and Congress could do more to stop mass shootings.
They have to do more. Not could, they have to.
So we don't know what kind of procedure they're going to take, but we'll see. We'll see, and hopefully we can make our kids that are going to school feel safe.
It's a tragedy that they actually. Yesterday I was talking to my 2 daughters and my wife, who is a school teacher, and both of my kids are in school. You know, we're talking about the whole, you know, what to do in a situation. And then my youngest daughter told me that one time she had this teacher who was new, and then at the beginning of the year, she talked about, you know, run, hide, or fight, which is sort of what they teach. And then they were sort of making a joke out of it, and then everybody was sort of like, oh my God, this teacher is crazy. But look, you know, it happens. And then it may not happen in your school, but it happens. So people have to talk about it, and you need to have a plan. One of the biggest things that has come out in every single like mass shooting is that people are so law-abiding that if you are trapped in a classroom, you know, they'll look for a closet to hide or a desk under. When you have the window, just break the window and then get out. But they're thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna get in trouble if I break this window.
Okay.
So more training is needed, and then people have to be able to kind of deal with this and then not just, you know, freeze. So, you know, once again, in hindsight, it's always 2020, and Congress has to do more. We have to talk more about this. So, you know, when the dangers are happening near you, you have to be able to report it or to be able to call somebody for them to come and take a look at the individual that possibly could be a threat.
Okay. Okay, then let's talk something more light. Okay. Let's talk about Olympics. And this is a headline from CNN. Asian Americans skate into Olympic spotlight in record numbers. CNN reported that it's a historic moment for Asian American skaters. Half of Team USA's figure skaters, 7 out of 14 to be specific, are Asian Americans. Ben, you've been following closely of Olympics, right? Pretty closely.
Oh, yes.
How do you feel as Asian Americans are doing their thing in Pyeongchang Olympics?
You know, not only the United States, you see Asians from Norway, you see Asians from Finland, and to the point that you have to look at the bottom or as to which country they represent or the color of the sort of the uniform that they wear to really know where they're coming from. I think Asians do well when it comes to Winter Olympics because you do not have to be, you know,
big.
6'5" and then 240 pounds to be able to compete in the Winter Olympics. I think Asians do well because there is that sort of stigma or parents, actually since you were very little, they push you to do a certain thing and then for you to do it really well. And I mean, I love it that Asians are being represented more than Chloe Kim. She's Korean, but she has won a medal for the United States. And, you know, it's kind of interesting. It's not only Asians, but there are other countries where they're granting citizenships to other people in order for them to be able to compete at a high level. One of the figure skating pair for the Korean team, the man is an American-born, New York-born American, and then the female is a U.S.-born Korean. So, you know, they have, I don't know if they have dual citizenship, but, you know, the fact that, remember, Christy Yamaguchi, Michelle Kwon, you know, Yamaguchi, I think, was in 92. So
92,
it's not new. And I think way before in the 60s, there was also another person.
Lady, right? Was it Yamaguchi?
Chin or something, the last name. And she was, so it's not new that figure skating has been sort of dominating by Asians. You know, Japan has always been in the forefront.
Yes, that's true. Right?
Russia has been always in the forefront. So I think when it comes to figure skating, it's sort of, they have a lot of interest. And that's why even in the United States, Asian Americans do well in figure skating.
And 7 out of 14, that's an impressive number, right?
Of course.
And I think it has a lot to do with the education system. I think, like you just mentioned, the parents keep on pushing their kids. But I heard that it's not just the Asian Americans doing that. If you look at the black community, they also pressure their kids to really excel in sports like basketball. But we do that in probably the figure skating or, you know, skating that's more adjusted to our body. So
archery,
yes, archery. So I think that work ethic, you know, many Asian Americans, they're very diligent. You know, the work ethic. If you mentioned Chloe Kim said that she left house at like 4 a.m. when she was a kid, and she would come back home at 11 p.m.
Wow.
So just imagine how much work she put in.
That sounds like an average high schooler in South Korea.
Something like that.
Before they take the test.
Here. So they just put that mentality into sports, which it worked. And I think parents' education had a lot to do with it. So I think Asian Americans, we excel in a lot of areas, especially academia. If you go to Harvard, like 20-30% of the entire students are Asians, and lawyers and doctors. There's so many Asian doctors and lawyers, and we have to include also Indians. Indians are Asians too, right? There's so many Indian lawyers. We're not trying to stereotype it, but that's just how it is. And I think the figure skating and shorts, this is the area where Asians seem to flourish, and I will dare to say that they will flourish more as time goes on.
Then again, you have the gentleman who won the skeleton. Is that what it's called?
Oh, that's what I think it's called.
Skeleton, right? They have luge, skeleton, and the bobsled, and they have all these. But the one going through the track. But this guy is built massive. He looks like just one piece of muscle, and he was able to win gold medal, not just for South Korea, but the first of its kind by like an Asian, because it's dominated by the Germans. And then I don't know if you saw the bobsled this weekend. They actually they tied for the gold medal. Oh, okay. The Russian and the German and the Canadian team. I mean, for them to be able to tie at a hundredth of a second, a thousandth of a second, and then for them to that's kind of what I watch the Olympics for. That kind of sort of like fun or So I've been following the Olympics. I think this is going to be great for Asia because the next game is going to be in Japan.
Yes.
So I think it's sort of setting precedents. Or is it Japan or China?
The next Olympics?
Yeah,
Isn't it Russia? What Russia? I thought it was Russia. I don't know.
Sochi
was there. Oh, sorry about that.
So I know the next
one. It was very difficult to
too.
follow up because they're doing this on NBC. NBC has the rights for Olympics. They always tape it. So for me, if it's not live, you kind of lose the spirit of sports. I like to watch things on live. I didn't get to watch a lot this time around of Olympics, but I researched about it last night when we decided to talk about Olympics, and I think South Korea and Japan, since both countries have very cold winter, we're very good at winter sports. And if you see the historically Winter Olympics, South Korea and Japan has been doing very well. This year, I think Japan is not doing that well, right? Am I correct?
No, they're still okay.
But South Korea is doing really good. 4 or 5 gold medals, and they're number 9 right now. America is not doing that well as we expect.
For the number,
yes, right? The athletes, they're number 5 right now. But I heard from many people that Pyeongchang Olympic is a tremendous success. That South Korea did their job. They represented their country well, the city well, Pyeongchang well, and I hope that it ends in a high note.
Absolutely. There were some fears that, it would turn out to be a disaster because the whole issue going on with North Korea and the U.S. But I think so far, so good. Everything's been diverted. Now everybody's singing Kumbaya, and seems like the closing ceremony is going to be a success as well. I've actually known people who they're not going to go, and then now they're able to actually secure some tickets for the closing ceremony and actually attending. So I think there's been an influx because there's positive sort of show. NBC has done a fairly good job. I think some of the things that, regarding the customs of Korea, they have little things where they miss, but at the same time, I think to be able to feature Korea is a good thing for all Koreans because the last time there was an Olympic was in '88, so it's been exactly
it's been quite
30
a while.
years.
Yes,
30 years,
exactly. It's exactly.
So one generation has passed, and now you're exposing the next generation of what Korea is all about. To even make it better for Korean Americans is the K-pop still super popular.
It is popular. It is popular here.
So I think people connect that as well.
Yes, I think South Korea is influencing this world in a massive scale. We wouldn't have imagined it back in 1988. I remember when we had Seoul Olympics, and that was a time when South Korea started to become an advanced country in worldwide.
Yes.
And now, like you said, it's kind of like a bow tie, right? Korea is viewed as a very successful country, advanced country. We have global companies like Samsung, LG, Hyundai, Kia, and not just in that front, but sports, like you mentioned, K-pop, drama, movies. South Korea is on a roll.
But what's the sort of anecdotal point of this? South Korea has done amazingly well. In the United States, we enjoy recognition. But politically speaking, Koreans are so underrepresented, not only in California,
you're talking about here, right?
In the United States.
That's true.
I think
that
we
is
really
true.
have to pay attention to local politics as Korean Americans.
Exactly, because Korean Americans, we do not have a representative in the U.S. Congress, right?
No.
And not even in the Senate, which is a travesty. I think
Correct.
we really need one. I heard that Michelle Park Steele, Orange County supervisor, she's also visiting. She visited Pyeongchang
Yes.
for the Olympics
With a delegation.
With a delegation. I think we need one. That's why it was tough to see Robert An being defeated last year. I thought that he had a good case, especially representing Koreatown, but he lost to Jimmy Gomez. But probably this year we have some good candidates too, right? Dave Min in Orange County, Democrat, and also Young Kim, who got endorsed from the current Congressman Ed Royce in Orange County as well. So probably if we're lucky, we might see 2 to 3 congressmen this year, right?
It's possible, but my thoughts have always been you kind of have to start local.
Yes,
because
yes.
you don't go from...
Politics is local.
Yeah, you don't go from just wanting to run to Congress. The success rate or something like that is going to be not as good as somebody that kind of does something else locally. You get to know your community and then name recognition and then moving on and then you become a congressperson.
Yes.
And I think, once again, Koreans, pali.
Yeah.
So we just want to go from
Probably
zero to
that, yeah.
Congress like right away. But I think there's a progression of what needs to be done.
Exactly. But I think in Young Kim's case, she did her work. She was a deputy for over
Yes.
20 plus years for Ed Royce, and also she was a assemblywoman
Correct.
for California legislature. So I
Correct.
think she did her work. And also Dave Min, I heard that he's been working
He
a
worked
lot
in Washington, D.C.
in Washington, D.C., and he came out in CNBC as an analyst, a Harvard grad, law professor in UC
Correct.
Irvine, right? So he has to square off a lot of tough opponents there. He's also actually facing one of his co-worker, right?
Correct.
So it's going to be interesting. We'll have another time to talk about OC politics, Korean American politics in the U.S., especially focusing on Southern California.
Yes.
So, well, that's it for us today. And please remember, it's not about left or right. It's about being right or wrong. To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.